3, 2, and 1.
Hello.
Hey, out there in podcast land, welcome to the Bunny Rabbit's Hole.
Yes. How is everybody doing today?
We
Or
are
tonight?
great.
Or
We
this
are
morning?
great. Everybody's great.
Everybody's awesome. Because if you're not, that's your choice.
Exactly. Then get on some pharmaceuticals because there's no reason to be difficult or pissed off or ornery or whatever it is or depressed when we got great drugs out there.
Yeah, I can't promote Big Pharma, dude. I just can't do it. Go smoke some weed.
Don't do drugs.
Don't do pharmaceuticals.
Right.
Do nature-grown ones.
Right, like cocaine.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. So this is the Bunny Rabbit's Hole, and this is what we do is we take a central theme and we expand on it, and we talk about it for a little bit, and we see what doors it opens, what holes we go down, and then when we finally get to the end of that hole, we turn around, come back to the central theme, and start all over again.
Right.
This is.
No, go ahead.
Okay, I was going to say this is the second part of our two-part series about
Prison Breaks.
Prison Breaks. Yes, this is a great one. This one was nominated by you, Senor Craig, to get us to go here. But we do have to say a couple things before we jump back into the second part, which I'm really excited about listening and talking about these other Prison Breaks. But we have to get a couple of things out of the way first.
Yes, that would be. We have researched these things. Our research is based off facts that we found on the internet. Yes, we know not everything on the internet is true.
Abraham Lincoln said that.
Right. But, we did our research, and so we are actually telling you facts, but mixed in with the facts are our opinions. Because, and jokes. And this is our show, so that's what it's about. How we feel about this. And if you're easily offended, tune out now because we're just going to piss you off more.
Exactly. This is all about entertainment. And if it's not your cup of tea, then just go away. Okay? Right. Other people do enjoy this. They are getting some thought of, and maybe you just might learn something. We went down a rabbit hole last time and we actually taught somebody something. It's fucking great.
I mean, from doing my research, I learned so much that I didn't know. And I think it's awesome because if you ever stop learning, you stop fucking living.
Exactly. Dumb shit.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, Prison Breaks.
Yes.
So we started back in the 12th century, 13th century, with the first attempt to use sheets as an escape plan out of the Tower of London. It didn't end very well, as we learned. If you want to recap that, you can go listen to the first part of this.
Right.
But then now we've gone all the way to John Dillinger. Right. So we're kind of in the early 20th century.
Yes.
And
we talked about Frederick Morris and we talked about John Dillinger. There was a couple more, before Dillinger that we could talk about if we want to. I'm gonna leave that up to you.
Yeah. No, I think we should let's just move forward and we can throw others in as we think of them later.
Yeah, and we are trying to stay chronological, but we do jump around.
We did last week. I got so excited when you started talking about tunneling out of prison there that we jumped all the way up to Juan Guzman. So if we don't talk about El Chapo necessarily in this episode, it's because it's in the first one. So go listen to the fucking first one, dickhead. If you would listen to the first one, you already know it's in the first episode. So fuck you.
Right.
First episode. This is the second episode.
All right. So let's move on.
I didn't really mean that.
Where do you want to start, Jason?
Okay.
Because we didn't introduce ourselves. I'm Craig.
And I am Jason.
All right. Got that out of the way.
If you listen to the first episode, you fucking know that.
Or the many other episodes we've already.
All the other ones. I forgot what number we're at right now, but
yeah.
So I'm going to skip a couple here, but we can go back and do a couple other ones because we started talking about tunneling and getting out of places. So the one I wanted to talk about was one that actually referred to as the Great Escape.
Okay.
So the Great Escape was find my notes here. The Great Escape was in World War II,
Mm-hmm.
and what had happened was there were 250 inmates.
Was this the French ones or?
This was it was okay. So this was in Stalag Luft Third, which is it was a POW camp in Germany in World War II. Now the Stalag established in March of 1942 in the German province of Lower, I can't pronounce it, near the town of Sagan, now Zagen, in Poland. It's basically 160 kilometers, 100 miles from Berlin. The site was selected because it was sandy soil and it was difficult for POWs to escape by tunneling, which is an important element in this whole story because it was specifically chosen because it was difficult to tunnel in. So,
Right.
And there was a first escape, or there was two. Okay, wait. There were two different escape plots by the Allied POWs. Now, when I say Allied, there was everybody that was against Germany and Japan and Italy at this time was called the Allies. Everybody else was called the Axis. And
Right.
the Allies were all. There was a whole hodgepodge of different. There was Americans and British and Polish and there was a bunch of people in here, but a good chunk of them were British.
Right.
Here. So what the Great Escape was essentially they were okay. So there was all the prisoners in there basically dug tunnels from their barracks to outside of the thing. They actually dug 3 different tunnels. One was called Tom, the other was called Dick, and the last one was called Harry. So when we're talking about Tom, Dick, or Harry, they're actually referring to there was secret code for these different tunnels. And they did 3 different tunnels because then they could figure out they didn't want to put all you put all your eggs in one basket and then you dig a tunnel out there, it takes you 2 years and then it goes to nowhere. So they figured it'd take the same amount of time to dig 3 different tunnels to go outside to find out which was the best escape route in case one of them was found.
Right.
So they had Tom began in the darkened corner next to a chimney in hut 123. Dick was the entrance was hidden in a drain slump in the washroom of hut 122, and then Harry began in the hut 104 in the administration area or the sick. It was the med station. These tunnels were about nine meters down, so they're about 30 feet below the tunnel, and they made it all the way to the outside of the fence. When they finally did escape, I'll skip forward here quick. When they finally did escape, there was it 90? Fuck, I'm trying to find the amount of prisoners that actually made it out because just about everybody was recaptured. Okay, here it was. Of the 70, in what was called the Great Escape, of the 76 escapees, 73 were recaptured. So if you were listening to last week, we're kind of talking about what's the percentage of these people that get recaptured after they're gone. But here, it was just about all of them. But Hitler was so pissed off that he wanted all of them executed, plus the architect and engineer of this prison to be executed with him because he specifically picked this location because it was sandy, so you can't tunnel. But he miscalculated the depth of the sand, but the prisoners did not. They dug deeper until they finally hit soil, and then they made their tunnels there.
Right.
This was a big smack to the face at Hitler, but there was 2 people that were not shot. One of them was a man by the name of Bob Nelson, who they figured he was spared because they believed he was a relative of Admiral Nelson. And then the other one was a man named Dick Churchill, and they thought he was spared because they thought he was maybe related to the British Prime Minister, and that would cause a huge headache.
Right. So
But one of the funny things about this whole thing is if you've ever seen the show Hogan's Heroes,
I was just going to ask you that.
Hogan's Heroes is roughly based off of this case with the tunnels to go out, but they made it a comedy and it's funny. But there's a really good movie. It came out in 1963 that has Steve McQueen and Richard Attenborough in it called The Great Escape. If you want to watch a really good escape movie,
Right.
that's a good one.
Well, while we're on this lines of POW camps in World War II,
Mm-hmm.
back in 1940, the Germans invaded France. They imprisoned 2 million French soldiers and put them in a prison camp. So in this prison camp, they had these big signs, no cameras. If anybody was found with a camera, they'd be executed and stuff like that. And much like, the Mexican prisons we talked about in the last episode, in order for these people to eat or get anything, their family had to send them things.
Right.
So what they did was they had outside help, and they would send them like digging material, stuff like that, and they'd send them in these packages, and they would address the packages a certain way. And so that, the prisoners worked within all that. So it's kind of like, you see prison movies and people are working in the library, people are working the mail, they're all prisoners, So they had prisoners doing that. So they would see the package that was labeled a certain way,
Mm-hmm.
and they'd toss out the window to somebody who would be waiting outside there, who would grab it, pick it up, and take it out before the Germans could investigate what it was. And, then they would get all their materials. Now, what was really, really interesting about this is the extents that they went to cover up everything they did. So, I mean, not only by, this weird addressing and stuff like that, because what they did was they tunneled 300 feet to get past the wire that ended the prison. And so they would have people digging during the day, and while these people were digging, they'd have other men out doing an exercise routine. So, to get their exercise to cover up the noise.
Nice.
So during that time, they ran into sheetrock. So if you ever dug anything and you run into sheetrock, that's a bitch to get through.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to make a lot of noise. You're going to have pickaxes and stuff like that hitting it. So what they did is they would dig at night then. And they'd have people underneath with pickaxes and stuff trying to get through the sheetrock. And to cover up the sound of that, they would have musical theaters like cabarets. And so they had all this loud music and stuff to cover up these people using the pickaxes to get through the sheetrock.
Oh, wow.
So it took them 4 months of digging, but then on September 14th, 1943, they finally broke through well beyond the perimeter of the fence. Then 4 days after that, 65 men went into the tunnel. The lead runner gets out of the tunnel, and he's looking around, checking everything out. And then all of a sudden the guards sound an alarm, and he's freaking out, and there's a spotlight going through, and it shines on these two people, which are just like two young lovers that picked that spot to copulate or whatever. So they take off running, and then the guard's like, oh, it's nothing. So then this guy is able to get out and give the all clear. So 132 prisoners got away before they found the tunnel.
Oh, wow.
Of those 132, 126 were recaptured in a week.
Oh, man.
This goes back to what I said in the last episode. If you're breaking out of prison, run as far and as fast as you can. Get the fuck out of there.
Don't stop. Don't stop.
Because you're just asking to be captured.
Exactly.
I'm going to hang around at my mom's house because they'll never look for me there.
Well, while we're monkey stomping the Nazis here, the Sobibor death camp was part of Nazis' Operation Reinhardt, which is a plan to murder both European and Polish Jews, and introduction to the mass killing facilities that they had, which were housed Leon Feldhauser or Feldhinder and Alexander Perchkay. I got to learn how to say these names. I really do. He's the first lieutenant Russian POW. But under the guidance of the prisoners made knives and other edged weapons in the prison's workshops and then they invited and waited for the officers to come to the shots to pick up something that they had demanded to be repaired. Then, just like Inglourious Bastards, they fucked up these German or these Nazi bastards, killing them, and then half of the 600 prisoners in this camp escaped. Now I don't know how many people were recaptured, but it was one of the most successful prison escapes in the 20th century because these motherfuckers decided they were going to take on the guys with guns with knives, and they won.
Was this at the Colditz Castle?
This is the Sobiter death camp. I have it in another.
Okay. I think I saw that somewhere. I just can't remember where. I'm just trying to get on the same pages. Oh well, it doesn't matter. Go ahead. Continue.
Oh no, that was the end of that I had on that one, but it doesn't go into how many people were recaptured or anything, but I just think that's a cool story that it was like the real life Inglourious Bastards.
Oh yeah, definitely. That is very interesting. So I mean there's more that we could talk about that happened during that time period, but those are pretty much the most famous ones. So yeah. I think we should jump up to let's go to Alcatraz. We gotta go to Alcatraz.
We haven't gone to Alcatraz.
So for those, everybody's heard of Alcatraz. The prison that was escape proof because it was out in the bay, surrounded by water. It was just a little island, and the water was freezing all the time. So on June 11, 1962, there's two brothers, John and Clarence Anglin, and Frank Morris, escaped Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary on the island using an inflatable raft, never to be seen again. Everybody's assuming that they are dead. Now, I did more research on this because I found it fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, there was 4 people involved in that attempt.
Yes, there was.
The 4th person, whose name was Alan West. The reason he didn't escape with the rest of them was because what they did was they would tunnel. They would use their ventilator grates in their cells, and they would they used spoons that they stole from the commissary, shovels that they found on the grounds, and they use these to widen out these ventilation ducts so they could fit through them. Well, Alan West, on the day they were supposed to break out, his ventilator grill got stuck. So he could not get out. But he actually, to get out of trouble for it, he pretty much cooperated with the investigation so that way he didn't get any extra time.
Yeah.
And then he was transferred to McNeil Island, Washington, when Alcatraz was deactivated in 1963, a year later. It's basically this prison break ended Alcatraz.
Right.
But there's more information to this that I dug up. Okay.
There's a lot more information.
The lead guy, Frank Morris, at the time had an IQ of 133, and he's the one he was the mastermind behind this, and he was said at the time to be in the top 2% of general population and intelligence. So he masterminded this thing, and using John and Clarence Anglin, who were born in Florida, to migrant farm workers, and they would live in Florida during the winter, and they'd move as far as Michigan and pick cherries in the summer. So, but people were marveled by these two because they became excellent swimmers, because they would swim in Lake Michigan while the ice was still breaking up. You're used to cold temperatures.
Right.
And, people thinking that, okay, nobody ever found them, so they must have died in the frigid waters. These two are used to swimming in cold water.
Exactly.
So, they go on, okay, these 3 escaped, never seen again, so they think that they're all dead. But there have been other things where people say, hey, I think these people are alive.
Including the family of the brothers.
Right.
I don't know, I think that where you're going to go next?
Yeah, but there was also like letters that were sent to like the FBI by the Anglin brothers.
Yeah.
Supposedly a photograph taken from somebody like somewhere in South America.
Right. So there's a documentary called Alcatraz escape, the lost evidence. It came out earlier this year or last year. Came out last year, I think. But what they end up doing is that it's the family of the descendants of the brothers kind of retrace their steps to the whole thing, and they actually have a Christmas card that's stamped from the 70s, and then a photograph that was also from the same time period. But the photo of the one brother, or the person in the photo that they thought was the one brother, they couldn't get enough evidence for facial recognition.
Mm-hmm.
But they had the FBI do it for the other photo, and within a 98%, they were 98% sure that that was the man from the mugshot.
Right.
So so that means that there's a 98% chance that they made it across, and then made it down to or it was somewhere in Brazil.
Yeah, that's where. I mean, there's also, in 2011, an 89-year-old man named Bud Morris, who said he was a cousin of Frank Morris, claimed that on 8 or 9 occasions prior to the escape, he delivered envelopes of money to Alcatraz guards, presumably as bribes. He further claimed to have met his cousin face-to-face in San Diego Park shortly after the escape.
Mm.
His daughter, who was 8 or 9 years old at the time, said she was present at the meeting with Dad's friend Frank, but had no idea about the escape.
Oh, wow. I had read that. That's awesome.
Yeah, so, I mean, I firmly believe these guys escaped. I mean, and what's fascinating about it is, well, so many things, but what they did was how they made the raft is they stole 50 raincoats throughout a period of time, and they took those raincoats into, like, after when they were whiting out the stuff, they would go in there and they go up to like steam pipes, and they would melt the fabric together.
Yeah.
To create the raft. And they said they estimated what happened is, okay, so they widened out these ventilation units. They climbed through them. They got to the roof. Then they climbed down basically a kitchen pipe that goes down the side of the roof. They climbed down that. Then they had, I don't remember what they used exactly to blow up the raft, but it took them about 10 minutes to blow up the raft.
Mm-hmm.
Investigators said, when they investigated all, they figured it was about 10 o'clock that they set sail on that raft. 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just fascinating the lengths that they've gone through, and it shows how intelligent Frank Morris was, know. But it's just fascinating.
And the thing that I love about this story is there's pieces and parts of it that come to light that, like, especially watching that documentary about it, I didn't know that there was a small cave on the backside of the island that would give them perfect shelter from all of the guard towers.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
So on the backside of the island, there's a small little cave that was just deep enough to where they could actually recess in there, and gave them a perfect staging point to blow up their rafts and then launch. But they had to do it within a certain time frame because they were still the last boat, the ferry that left the island. So they had to do it within a certain time frame, so that the coordination and everything that was there was just phenomenal.
Right.
So Morris was definitely an intelligent man. But the brothers too had a history of escaping from different places.
Yes, they did.
So their story is amazing, because there was three of them total, and 2 of them ended up in Alcatraz and the other one ended up somewhere else. And then he was actually, after the fact, was like mysteriously died like a year or 2 later in an Alabama prison.
Okay.
So, but the family was thinking that he was interrogated and beaten the hell out of, trying to get information about the other 2 brothers and what was happening with them, because all 3 of them were very close, and a lot of crimes were together.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they grew up in a poor family. Obviously they're migrant farm workers, so we know they don't have a lot of money. So they took to crime. They took to burglary and theft. And they also said, the places they robbed, they only once used a weapon, and it was a toy gun.
Right.
But another really interesting thing, in 2018, the FBI actually confirmed the existence of a letter allegedly written by escapee John Anglin. And which forced them to reopen the investigation of the case. The FBI examined the letter for fingerprints and DNA in the handwriting, which produced inconclusive results. In the letter, it says, and the letter they received was in 2013. The letter says, "My name is John Anglin. I escaped from Alcatraz in June 1962 with my brother Clarence and Frank Morris. I am 83 years old and in bad shape. I have cancer. Yes, we all made it that night, but barely." The author of he also goes on to say that Frank Morris died in 2008 and Clarence Anglin died 3 years later in 2011.
Wow. So if they made it out and lived
Yes.
long lives.
Yeah, because
you said he was 83 years old?
Yeah, 83 years old. So, I mean, you think about this. This is, okay, they escaped in 1962.
Yeah.
So this is 56, or no, not 56. It's 51 years later, because it was in 2013 that he sent the letter, and it was in 2018 that the FBI confirmed it. But some 51, 52 years after they escaped, why would somebody claim to be him and send this letter?
Yeah.
You know, most people aren't even going to remember it.
Exactly. It was about as forgettable as the Clint Eastwood movie.
Right. So, you know, for me, I'm going to go out on a limb and say, this letter is truth. Do I have the facts to back it? No. But do I believe that? Yes.
It's a little too weird to claim that you're an 83-year-old man who escaped from Alcatraz, you're dying of cancer. I mean, if you were fucking around and you said all that shit, there's some serious bad karma coming your way.
Right. And then turn around and say, okay, Frank Morris died in 2008. My brother died 3 years later in 2011.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that since he was in bad shape, had cancer, he probably died shortly after the letter.
Probably. If not, yeah, he very, very shortly, within a year probably at the most.
Right.
Because I don't know where he was at, or what kind of health care he had, but.
Right. I'm going to go out on a limb and say they left the country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and so the pictures that were from the one picture that was in that documentary had them in Brazil.
Okay.
Living on some land there. So, but what I'm thinking is okay, their friend died in 2008. His brother dies in 2011.
Right.
2 years later, he's down in a foreign land, can't talk to any of his family. His brother and his friend are both dead. You've got cancer. You're going to go through one of the grieving steps, is, you seek forgiveness.
Right.
You look to repent. And that's got all the earmarks of somebody trying to get something off their chest before they their maker.
Without a doubt. I'm looking for another one. Go ahead. If you've got another one that you want to jump to, go for it.
I completely agree with that. That is in fact his actual words.
Yeah.
But it's kind of funny the psychology and the amount of, like, just going to the Alcatraz thing. Everybody's seen Shawshank Redemption, and it Andy Dufresne rather. Took him 20 years to dig a big ass hole in the wall, to crawl through, to get into his pipe full of shit, go 500 yards, to not have a gate or a grate on the other end of it, which is kind of weird in the first place. But then, but it took him 20 years to do that. So these guys they had to come up with a plan. Okay, we're going to need 50 raincoats. Well, how the fuck do you get 50 raincoats without somebody noticing?
Right.
So one at a time, maybe one a month.
Yeah.
One every 2 months. So let's say they're each stealing one a month. They're at still well over a year just getting supplies.
Yeah, definitely.
And then you still have to be able to, then now you have to get into the manufacturing stage, and you only get, a couple hours a night? Because
right.
Before they even did that, they had to make the paper mache heads.
Yep.
But first they had to dig through the grates to be able to get out of their cell.
Right.
Then they had to make paper mache heads so that when the guards walked by, they're be counted. There's so just the amount of planning that one would have to do just to get out of a place like that.
Right. Yeah, and that's something that I forgot to mention is they had paper mache heads that they placed on their bed to make it look like they were still there.
Yeah. And you had to have it in your, for years. I'm sure it probably took a couple of years to plan and execute. And then everything had to be right. You had to be able to find a night where the fog didn't come in.
Yep.
Because that's one of the things that they talk about with the San Francisco Bay is when the fog comes in, a lot of times people just out in boats can't find the shore.
Right. Right. And that's kind of a scary thing.
Wow. And now think you're on some raft made of vulcanized rubber raincoats.
Yeah.
It's been soldered together with a heat pipe.
Right.
Fuck.
All right. So that is Alcatraz.
Yeah. There were a few other attempts in Alcatraz, but this is the most popular one.
Right. This is one everybody's heard of. And I'd heard of it. I watched the movie when I was a kid, but I never got all the information that I got from actually doing the research. Or if I did, I didn't remember it because I'm old.
Yeah, that too. All you really remember is the Birdman Alcatraz.
Yep.
That's the only other character you remember from there. And he's a fascinating individual too. But that's a podcast for another. Maybe we'll do a podcast eventually about some of the most violent people in prisons that you wouldn't expect. And Robert Shroud is one of those people, even though he wrote this fascinating book about like the mating cycles of pigeons or some shit like that. But he actually wrote like a really well-respected book on birds. And that's kind of where he got the Birdman Alcatraz thing from. But he was a violent man. They referred to him as a wolf, which is basically a homosexual man that's on the prowl waiting to attack at any time.
Right.
So he's a fascinating character too. We'll do him, and then eventually we talked about Panzram the last one. We'll do just some of the most vile prisoners of all time. We'll do on that.
I want to backtrack to 1923 real quick.
Oh, yeah.
I found this one. Okay, there's this gentleman, Leonard T. Fristow, and he was in prison for double murder in 1920 of a police constable and deputy sheriff in Nevada. So he was put into Nevada State Prison, where he escaped in 1923. Now, this is one of those where somebody wasn't caught right away. He lived for nearly 46 years under the alias of Claude R. Willis before being turned in by his own son.
Oh, wow.
And so then he went on, served a couple of years in prison before he died of natural causes. But this dude's son turned around and turned him in. Now, does that show bad parenting or?
Right. It's so weird because you almost want to give somebody a pass at that point. It's like, okay, we know you still owe a debt to society, but you beat us.
Right.
You're going to die in 3 years anyway. What the hell else are you going to do?
Right. And we always hear about the statute of limitations. This was 46 fucking years.
Yeah, exactly. For him to, and he probably would have lived, 6, 8, 10 more years.
Right.
But being betrayed by his own child.
Yeah. And going to prison, people don't live as long in prison as they do in free life. And we see that with animals they're put in zoos.
Exactly.
All right. Anyways, we can go back to where we were. I'll let you pick the next one.
We did Alcatraz, right?
Yep.
Okay. So
quiet.
Yeah. Which one did you do? Okay, so which one did you just do? What was the guy's name again?
Oh, it was. I gotta backtrack because it was.
That was in 1922, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So here's another one that was in the research that I kind of glossed over. In 1959, very similar to your last case, Frank Freshwater's escaped from Ohio prison. He was serving a sentence for involuntary manslaughter from a 1957 car accident. After 56 years, he was arrested in Florida. So
Well,
he managed to be away for a long time too.
yeah. So in order to okay, let's go. It doesn't say try it as an adult or anything, so we know he was already an adult
Yeah.
when he went to prison.
Yes.
Then he escapes after being in prison for what, 2 years?
Yeah.
He escapes after being in prison for 2 years. So let's say even if he was 18, so now he's 20 when he escapes. He is now 76 years old when they catch him.
Yes.
That's minimum.
Right. Right.
So I mean, there's a good chance he was even older than that.
Right. He could have been 86 or shit, even 96 at this point.
Right. That's amazing, really.
Yeah.
And again,
you always have to say it's like, fuck it. Just, yeah. You're free, man. Enjoy it.
Yep. You fucked it. You got it. You want, all right. I mean, unless he committed another crime or something.
Right. Which is, it's a possibility, but.
Right. But I mean, if you escape from prison, you want to stay under the radar, don't commit another crime, dumbass.
Especially don't do the same thing with the same MO.
Right. And a lot of these people did, and that's why they got caught.
Right. And that's how a lot of people do get caught because, well, first of all, they don't have any mode of transportation unless they had somebody on the outside. So what do they have to do? They have to steal a car. Well, now there's an APB out on that car, which helps them find you. It's like, oh, well, we got some escaped convicts here. Oh, we got an escaped car heading this way. It doesn't take law enforcement long when they start communicating between organizations or municipalities.
Right.
Agencies.
I'm going
to look for agencies.
Yeah, I'm gonna skip over the whole Billy Hayes, the drug smuggler, because they made that into a movie, Midnight Express. You want to know about him? Watch the movie.
Yeah, it's a rough movie, but yeah.
I want to go to 1977 here, and because this touches on the civil rights one we talked about.
Oh yeah.
The convicted murderer of Martin Luther King Jr., James Earl Ray, because we know all assassinators use 3 names. If you're going to assassinate somebody, you best get your middle name out there. But he escaped from Brushy Mountain State Prison in Tennessee along with 6 others. He was recaptured within 2 days. He'd been running and hiding in the mountains forest surrounding the prison. Again, if you're going to escape, get the fuck out of there. Yeah. Don't hide near the prison. You're going to get caught. They have dogs. They have other shit. Hell, nowadays they have fucking drones.
Right, exactly. So along those same lines, the town that I grew up in has got 3 state penitentiaries in it. There's a minimum, a maximum, and medium security. I have a friend who's a security guard, he's a prison guard in the maximum security prison, and he works what they call the sniper towers. And being up there, it's so fucking boring. He goes, nobody's going to try to escape from this prison. They're not going to try to get over the fence. And that's my job, is to make sure that they don't climb the fence. It's like, they're not going to do that. If they're going to escape, it's going to be the medium or the more than likely the minimum security prison. That's where, and in that town, every escape attempt has been from the minimum security prison. People trying to walk away from work crews and stuff like that. Well, there's this, yes, in my hometown, there are trailer parks, and there's a trailer park right in front of the prison. And one guy that got out managed to make it about 300 yards from the front gate, broke into one of these trailer homes and tried to hide and wait it out. But they essentially watched his trail through the morning dew across the field that went directly into the trailer park. So they instantly surrounded the entire trailer park and then went door to door.
Right.
And then it took them all of like 40 minutes to get him out of the trailer back into the prison. And then he was moved from there for a prison attempt. he was moved from there to the maximum security.
Right. Yeah, and also, what's also kind of ironic about that is that town you lived in, everybody knows everybody.
Yes, exactly. Well, it was a town of like 3,500 people, but then after they built the prisons, there's about another 3,500 people that are locked up. Actually, I think 3,800 that are locked up, and then there's 3,000 in the town. So you're right. Everybody knows everybody, but when the census comes out, the town looks like on paper it's got almost 8,000 people in it. Well, because they have to, with the census, they have to go to the closest municipality, which is my hometown. So essentially, the town doubled in size, but half of the residents are locked up.
Right. Well, and they actually, because I had to go to that prison for a job that I had, that trailer park's no longer there either.
Oh, okay, good.
It's, I believe, businesses now.
Nice.
So all right. So
not for those people that were disposed of and moved out of their homes.
Oh, here's another interesting one for you. In 1977, convicted murderer James Robert Jones, again, use 3 names.
Yeah.
Escaped from prison in Kansas. Then he goes on to live in Florida for 37 years under the alias of Bruce Walter Keith. He was then arrested in March of 2014. It is assumed that he used someone else's identity. So another one where, again, he 37 years out and ends up back in prison.
Wow, 37 years though.
Yeah, I mean, these people should be taking a lesson from that serial killer Frederick Morris, who they never heard from him again.
Right.
Because you guarantee that guy skipped the country. And it was a lot easier then, being in the early 1900s, but because it was boat, there was no plane then.
Exactly.
All right, where are we going to next, Jason?
Okay. Yeah. It baffles my mind that how stupid these people are. Smart enough to get the fuck out, but they're not smart enough to
stay out.
Yeah. I don't know how else to put it. It's just, what the fuck is your problem? Because
it's amazing to me because, like I said, if you're gonna escape, get the fuck out of there.
Right.
Low profile, use a different alias, whatever. Get out of the country. Go somewhere where there's no extradition laws. And here we are promoting prison escapes. These people probably aren't going to listen to our podcast anyways.
Exactly. Chances are anybody that's listening to our podcast is not going to be able to, first of all, they're not going to be in prison.
Right.
I highly doubt that you're going to be able to listen to this in prison.
Right.
The second part is, I'd hope that we would actually have a better, our listeners are a little bit a little bit smarter than how some of these stupid fucks are.
Right.
They'll never check for me in that trailer park right there in front of the goddamn door.
Right.
I'm gonna hide in the trunk of this car.
And see, there are a lot that, there are a bunch of these that didn't take place in America.
Yeah.
They actually state escaped. Like the guy who became the third president of Ireland. Yeah. I mean, another one, happened in 1983. It's called the Maze Prison Escape. Mm-hmm. And this is where, basically 38 people from the Irish Republican Army escaped from the HP Maze in Northern Ireland, the biggest prison escape in Irish or British history. These people never went back to prison because what they did is got the fuck out.
Right. And on March 2nd, 1982 in Peru, that the PCP guerrilla fighters assaulted a prison, resulting in the release of 255 inmates.
I don't know if I count that as a prison escape.
Because they busted them out. I don't know if they were trying to get. See, I don't know enough about it if they were trying to break out one person and they just had to, get 255 people in the meantime to kind of cover up the one person that they were trying to break out.
Right. You know, and I mean, there's other ones like the 1983 Batticaloa jailbreak in, you know, Sri Lanka. But then again, I think that was more people breaking people out. So I don't really count those. So I usually try to stay to the ones in the U.S., except for this one in 1993, because I really kind of like this one. There's these two good dudes in the Melbourne Remand Center in
Yeah.
Australia.
I was just about to talk about this one. I love this case.
Peter Gibb and Archie Butterly. So Peter Gibb, there's this prison guard named Heather Parker. Peter Gibb's having a relationship with Heather Parker. She helps him escape. And so they get out. And then 6 days later, the police found Butterly shot, dead, and then recaptured Gibb.
Yeah.
Granted, okay, Australia is an island, but there's plenty of fucking places to hide.
Yeah, there's a big ass desert in the middle of it.
Right. But I found, I don't know, I guess I found a lot of humor in that one.
It was like this really stupid love triangle that never should have happened because, I mean, first, okay, I don't understand the whole women falling in love with inmates thing. Like most of these people, like Richard Ramirez and Ted Bundy, they all getting married while they're in prison.
Right.
Like, what the fuck are you thinking, lady? You're going to marry this guy that you, like, neither one of them got a conjugal visit.
Right.
I think Bundy actually got to kiss his wife on the cheek once, and Ramirez was not allowed to touch her. So, like, what do you get out of it? I mean, okay, so now you're married to the person, and now when they're executed, you're liable for picking up the remains because you're the next of kin. Like
right.
this random blogger, I think what he was he became friends with Charles Manson near the end, and when Manson passed away, everything in his will was left to this dude. So now he had to, like, I don't know what it came of it, but it was up to him on what they were going to do with his remains.
Right.
Like, I mean, that's just a friendship with somebody like that. That's not marriage. I mean, now you're married to the motherfucker.
Right.
Now you're stuck to it. But while we're on the case of Bundy,
yeah,
I mentioned Bundy. Bundy he's one of the what they call the heavy hitters in the serial killer world. He's probably the most charismatic, smartest serial killer that ever walked our streets. But
he was smooth like butter.
Yeah. He had multiple prison escapes. And the Colorado especially doesn't like this man because so as the story goes, Bundy he fired his attorney and was going to represent himself. So while he's it was in Aspen, I believe, but while he's in Aspen, he's allowed to go to the prison library and do research. Well, he was up there with the same guard night after night after night, and the guard trusted him enough to the point where he would take off his shackles, just stand at the door, and just let Ted Bundy do Ted Bundy stuff. He's researching his case. Well, Bundy found that there was windows in the back of the library that were big enough for him to fit through. So after one night of doing this, he went to the back, scaled a bookcase, climbed out the window, had to drop 3 stories to the ground, still managed to walk away unscathed, and then escaped from there he went from there to Chicago. From Chicago, he traveled by train to Ann Arbor, Michigan, and from there he ended up down in Florida, in Tallahassee, or actually he went to Atlanta first, and then he ended up in Tallahassee, where he actually did probably his most heinous crimes, where he killed 5 or 6 co-eds in the sorority house, and he killed 5 in a sorority house, I believe, and then he kidnapped Leslie Parmenter was her name. She was a 14-year-old girl, but he kidnapped her, And then
Was this during his first or second prison break?
this is after his second.
Okay.
The second is the most. He was caught almost instantly the first time.
Okay.
This time he gets away from Aspen in January. Where did he?
Okay. Yeah.
Almost 6 months. He was gone almost 6 months, and he goes down to. He gets finally stopped by a Pensacola officer near the Alabama state lines, and the car that he was in was registered as stolen. So that's, if it wasn't for that officer checking his plate or calling in on his plate, Ted Bundy probably would have got away from there too.
Right.
And gone on and done God knows what more.
Fun fact, that was a VW Bug.
Yes, it was. Which was actually, it was like his car of choice. He actually had one that when he was in the state of Washington, he would drive around and it didn't have a passenger seat because he would get them in the car or knock them out before he got them in the car. Then he could just lay them down and nobody could see them when he was driving around.
Right. Well, here's interesting. An article I found on that. The very last paragraph is read, "Creepy bastard. Ted Bundy was a charming, articulate psychopath, a description that, at least in literature and movies, has become a cliche."
Nice.
He was an attractive man.
Yeah, he was a good-looking dude.
Yep. But you can look. I mean, just looking at his eyes, you can see there's something off with him.
Oh, he was cold. They're like a shark's eyes.
Yep.
Every single picture, there's nothing there.
Yeah, it looks like he's searching for prey.
Yeah.
And it could be because we know this stuff about him, that we see this stuff. You know, meeting somebody like that on the street, you might be put off by their eyes, but the fact that he was so charismatic and was such a smooth talker, it makes you forget about this stuff.
Right. And one of the things that was kind of interesting about this case too is why Bundy up until this point was already stuff of legend.
Yeah.
He was already a heavy hitter. There's attributed he confessed to like 80 some murders, but is only convicted, I think, 12. And it was so low for what he was probably done. But when he was in the penitentiary, there was this murder spree that was going on up and down I-5 in Washington, Oregon, and Vancouver, British Columbia. Bundy actually contacted the authorities and said, "Look, I can help you catch this guy because I think like this guy."
Right.
And there was actually times in this whole circuit where the Green River Killer was the person that they're trying to find. Bundy and Gary Ridgway, which is the guy that was actually caught and convicted, actually were in some of the same circles at this time.
Right.
And actually Ridgway was actually in the same circle with another notorious Canadian killer called Robert Picton, the pig farmer. So it's weird that these guys actually they may not have actually known each other, but they were killing in the same place at the same time.
Huh.
They had the same killing grounds. But at first they refused Bundy's insight, but then they actually allowed him to talk, and then they started using it, and that was actually some of the catalyst to help the FBI further their behavioral sciences, which was, everybody knows what the behavioral sciences unit is now after like Silence of the Lambs.
Right. Hello, Carice.
Exactly. So, or Netflix Mindhunter, which is actually about the creation of this, where they actually go down and talk to some other actually West Coast killers that are along the same lines. They talked to Ed Kemper, which was another if you're into serial killers like I am, Ed Kemper is one of the weirdest ones out there, because he was a mama's boy who hated his mom and ended up fucking her skull.
Oh, skull fuckery.
Yeah. And then he killed his mom's bridge partner. Like, what did he say? I killed my mom's bridge partner, and then I fucked her throat whole after I cut her head off.
Okay.
But Ed Kemper he liked to talk, and when he was in prison, he's still alive, I think.
Yeah.
He actually has 5,000 hours of books on tape. That's what he did for pastime in prison, was read books on tape.
Or listen to books on tape?
He recorded them. He actually read them out loud. He's got a fascinating voice. So you should. And the guy that, I don't know who's more him. If you watch Mindhunter, you get to meet Ed Kemper, and he was a huge man. He was 6'9", 350 pounds, just a big dude.
Yep. Yeah, he's pretty intimidating. I saw the show.
But Kemper never escaped from prison, so we'll jump back to prisons.
All right. So, I want to skip the ones like in Greece and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So let's go to Actually, I want to go to 1998, and this isn't going to be on your Wikipedia list.
Okay.
It happens on Easter weekend in Everglades Correctional Facility in Florida. So there is this family, the Sigler family, and the son, Jay Sigler, is in jail, and he's freaking out. He's in prison. He's in this correctional facility. He doesn't think he's going to last. So he's talking to his mama, who went by the name Mama Sigler, on the phone. You know, you got to help me out. And she's like, don't worry about it. It's taken care of. So with help from her other son, Charlie, who was called Shotgun Charlie, and their friend Mick, who was called Big Rig Mick, what they did was they stole a big rig. You know, they got an 18-wheeler, but they didn't have the whole trailer and stuff. It was just the cab. Right. And they tell him to be in the yard at a certain time to make sure he's in yard for, you know, the exercise time, because he normally didn't go out in the yard because he was afraid of getting killed. So he goes out there. He's sitting on a bench. He's freaking out. Then the guards notice that this truck is approaching the prison. And they're like looking at it, and they're going, hey, do you see this? And they're like, hey, wait a minute. That thing's coming pretty fast. And behind the truck is this yellow sports car. So the truck plows through the fence into the yard, and they get out, and they're shooting at the guards, doing cover fire and yelling at Jay, hurry up, come on. All three of them were able to get to the car that Mama Sigler was driving and take off. So they bolt out of there. They leave the semi and take off with Mama. So Mama and Charlie and Mick get arrested 20 minutes later.
Okay.
Jay gets arrested the next day. Mama then testifies against Jay. She got 13 months. He gets life.
Oh, wow.
She orchestrated this breakout for her son and gets 13 months in prison because she testified against him.
Yeah, I came up with this plan for him.
Right.
What the?
What? Yeah, this was in White Rabbit. So that's why it's not in the Wikipedia thing.
So that is getting what you pay for your attorney, right there.
There you go. I found that one quite interesting.
That is, wow.
I'm sure you've got a lot on the Texas 7, which jumps us up to 2000 at present. Or actually, there's also, we should probably touch on the Louisiana Death Row one.
In what year? Where am I at here?
1999.
Oh, yeah, the Leslie Dale Martin?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. So Leslie Dale Martin and 3 other inmates in Louisiana's death row escaped from their cells in Louisiana State Penitentiary. Now, I want to say this about the Louisiana State Penitentiary. If you're on death row in Louisiana State Penitentiary, you're going to die. So I don't blame anybody that's on death row in Louisiana for getting the fuck out of there. Not because they kill more people than, say, Florida or Texas do. it's where the prison is located. It's in the middle of a fucking swamp. So even if you do get out, you still are surrounded by swamps that have alligators and snapping turtles and other fucking big ass snakes. It's not a pleasant place. But
Going on the
so
bayou.
Leslie Dale Martin and 3 other inmates, they were caught within hours. Not a surprise. Now, before they even managed to escape the prison grounds, that the 4 men managed to escape using hacksaws that had been smuggled in for them by bribed a corrections officer. The other officers were inattentive to the inmates' that 2 to 3 week effort cutting their cell doors and window. How do you do that if you've ever used a hacksaw trying to cut steel? It takes forever.
And it's loud.
And it is not it is loud as fuck. Plus
it's gonna take more than one hacksaw because you're gonna dull the fuck out of that one first.
Exactly. This is hardened steel. These bars are not, it's not like cutting a tin can.
You're better off to chip away at the cement holding them in.
Right. Exactly.
There's some tips for you that I want to go out and try to break out of prison.
Yeah. So after the escape, 2 corrections officers were fired and 2 others were demoted. So wait, you sneak in hacksaws, you turn a blind eye to death row inmates there, and 2 get to go unemployment and 2 others get sent to the kitchen. I mean, what the fuck? I mean, that's all you get out of that? So
Well,
2 corrections officers later overheard Martin plotting another escape, which included taking hostages and commandeering a vehicle to ram the prison's front gates. Okay, now that is a little bit more respectable than we're going to cut our bars and then go, well, now we're in the hallway.
Right.
So where the fuck are they going? You're still in the goddamn building.
Right.
So Martin was immediately moved into a holding cell outside of the death chamber a month before his execution in 2002. So I don't blame him for trying to get out, but unlike a lot of the people that we talked about here, he had a lot of things in place, but his plan was stupid from the start. So there's no way this shit was going to work. Where the fuck are you going? It'd be like my kid when he was younger breaking out of his bedroom after I grounded him, and now he's in the hall. You still can't get out of the house.
Right. Oh, you know what? There's another one that I want to touch on that happened before that. A year before that, in 1998, the Belgian child molester Marc Dutroux managed to escape for a few hours. He was caught the same afternoon, but the incident forced 2 politicians to resign and deepened the loss of faith in the Belgian judicial system. So this is ironic because of the cover-up and everything else and the politicians involved in it. And, I mean, a 17-month investigation by a parliamentary commission into the whole affair produced a report which concluded that while Dutroux did not have accomplices in high positions in the police and justice system, as he continued to claim, he profited from corruption, sloppiness, and incompetence. Now, this guy, what is scary about this, having, basically whether he had, people up there or not, he was arrested for abducting and raping 5 young girls. He was sentenced to 13 and a half years in prison.
Wow.
That's
it though? I mean, that's the weird thing about some other countries. The prison sentences that they get 13 years for raping and he raped children, right? Is that what you said?
He abducted and raping 5 young girls. Now, what's worse than only getting 13 and a half years? He received a sentence of 5 years for showing good behavior in prison.
Oh.
So it was lowered. And he only served 3 years upon his release. The parole board received but never replied to a letter from his own mother to the prison director, blah, 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 that he was scaring his own grandmother during supervised visits to her house. And that she was certain he was planning something nefarious, although she didn't know what. After his release from prison, he convinced a psychiatrist he was psychiatrically disabled, resulting in a government pension.
What?
Yeah. And then on June 1995, 8-year-old school friends Julie something, and I'm not going to say the last names because they don't need it. They were kidnapped and going for a walk. And he kidnapped them, brought them to his house, and then we don't need to go into what he did to them afterwards. But then he got caught and went back to jail. And that's when he tried breaking out.
Oh, wow.
So this is some fucked up shit.
Well, I would lose faith in the judicial system. System if that was going on around, especially if it was like my kid that was the victim.
Yeah.
First of all, you get like, I don't know how old the kid was, but let's just say that they were less than 13. So you're getting about a year for every single one of these cases, for every year the kid was alive.
Right.
That's all you're getting.
Meanwhile, you wreck the rest of their lives.
Exactly.
And let the punishment fit the crime.
Yeah.
I'm not a big proponent of the death penalty, but I think life in prison, several life sentences for something like that isn't unwarranted.
No, it's not.
I know people going, but our tax money, blah, blah, blah. You know what? Our tax money is going to for-profit prisons anyway, so shut the fuck up.
Yeah. Exactly. So in that same time period, this one's not very remarkable. Actually, I'm going to go back and touch on something else about prison sentences. The two guys' names that are escaping me right now, but in Ecuador and Colombia, there were two different guys that were convicted of killing in excess of 100 kids.
Wow.
They're pretty sure he's closer to 300 children, but it was during this time of civil war was going on in the time. So this guy was a drifter, and it was hard to pinpoint all the places that he was at, but he would actually just have these different dump sites of these children where he would get a child, offer them some alcohol, offer them some candy, walk them out, rape, kill, dump their bodies. But he would do this shit on a scale unprecedented to anybody else, with the exception of one other person from that same time period around there. But the one by the beast, and I'm trying to remember his name right now. I'm trying to look it up right now real quick. But him and another guy, both of them were convicted of in excess of 100 murders each. Both of them, one will be free next year, and the other one's already free.
That's fucked up. Because
the maximum sentence you can get in Colombia is 20 years.
That's fucked up.
Yeah. And yeah, they did 20. There's people in, you get more than that for just, robbing a bank here.
Right.
But you did more murders than Gary Ridgway, Ted Bundy, and John Wayne Gacy together were all convicted of. You can throw Dahmer in there too, and it still doesn't come up to the 138 children he was convicted of.
Right.
Not talking about the 100 or the nearly 300 that he was thought to have killed. But right. It goes back to sentencing structures in other countries are just a little bit different than ours.
Yeah. Well,
granted, we get off on locking people up that probably shouldn't be locked up for as long as they are with these mandatory minimums.
Right.
But that's another whole story.
Yeah. So let's jump up to 2000 to present. And here, the first one that pops up is the Texas 7.
Okay.
They escaped from the John B. Connolly unit on December 13th, 2000. 6 of them were captured after over a month and a half on the run. The 7th killed himself before being captured, because why wouldn't you? Because you're going to be in prison for life.
Exactly.
Oh, I found some more. And they had some elaborate scheme to escape. The reported ringleader was 30-year-old George Rivas. He was serving 18 consecutive 15-to-life sentences. Michael Anthony Rodriguez, 38, was serving 99 to life term for contracting the murder of his wife, Rolando Ruiz Jr. He was sentenced to death and blah, 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 but that's after he was captured, blah. Okay. Then there was several more, okay? Using several well-planned ploys, the 7 convicts overpowered and restrained 9 civilian maintenance supervisors, including their boss, 4 correctional officers, and 3 uninvolved inmates at approximately 11:20. The escape occurred during lunch and at count time, the slowest period of the prison day, when there was less surveillance of certain locations, such as the maintenance area. Most of the plans involved one of the offenders calling someone over while another hit the unsuspecting person on the head from behind. Once each victim was knocked unconscious, the offenders removed some of his clothing, tied him up, gagged him, and placed him in an electrical room behind a locked door, which was full of electronics, including warning alarms. The attackers stole clothing, credit cards, and identifications from their victims. The group impersonated prison officers on the phone and created false stories to ward off suspicion from authorities. After this first phase, 3 of the group made their way to the back gate of the prison, some disguised in stolen civilian clothing. They pretended to be there to install video monitors. 1 guard at the gatehouse was subdued, and the trio raided the guard tower and stole numerous weapons. Meanwhile, the 4 offenders who stayed behind made calls to the prison tower guards to distract them. Then they stole a prison maintenance pickup truck, which they drove to the back gate of the prison, picked up their cohorts, and drove away from the prison. Michael Rodriguez's father had provided a getaway car for the men. For his act, he was convicted of a crime himself. Then they had a crime spree. The white prison truck was found in a parking lot of the Walmart in Kennedy, Texas, because where else are you going to dump a truck but in Walmart?
Right.
The Texas 7 first went to San Antonio right after breaking out of the complex. Realizing that they were running out of funds, they robbed a Radio Shack in Pearland, Texas, and Greater Houston the following day. On December 19th, 4 of the members checked into an Econo Lodge motel in Farmers Beach, Texas, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area under assumed names. They decided to rob an Oshman Sporting Goods because, why not? And nearby Irving, on December 24th, 2000, they entered the store, bound and gagged all the staff, and stole at least 40 guns and sets of ammunition. Now, these guys had a fucking mission. An off-duty employee standing outside of the store noticed the commotion inside and called the police. Irving police officer Aubrey Hawkins responded to the calls, arrived at the scene, and was almost immediately ambushed. His autopsy later showed that he had sustained 11 gunshots and been run over by the escaped convicts as they fled the scenes.
Damn.
Hawkins died at Parkland Memorial Hospice in Dallas shortly afterwards. So after Officer Hawkins' murder, a $100,000 reward was offered to whoever could snare the group of criminals. The reward climbed to $500,000 before the group was apprehended. And this is where it gets really interesting, because we saw this show all the time when we were kids. Following an episode of the television show America's Most Wanted, which I didn't even know was still going on in 2000.
I didn't either.
But it first aired, according to this, it first aired January 20th, 2001. I remember seeing this show in the 80s. But several people phoned in possible sightings of the suspects at Coachlight Motel and RV Park in Woodland Park, Colorado. They apparently tried to pass themselves off as missionaries playing loud Christian music within earshot of their neighbors. I'm sorry. The FBI Denver SWAT team found Garcia, Rodriguez, and Rivas in a Jeep Cherokee in the RV park. The FBI followed them to a nearby gas station and arrested them. They found Halpern and Harper in an RV. Halpern surrendered peacefully, but Harper was found dead after a standoff. He had shot himself in the chest with a pistol. The surviving 4 members were taken into FBI custody. On January 23rd, 2001, FBI received information on the whereabouts of the remaining 2 escapees, Newberry and Murphy. They were hiding in a Holiday Inn in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Apparently, Colorado is the place to go when you escape prison.
Yeah, apparently.
A deal was brokered with the 2 to allow them to make live TV appearances before they were arrested. In the early hours of January 24th, a local KKTV television anchorman, Eric Singer, was taken to the hotel where he interviewed the 2 by telephone while on camera. Newberry and Murphy harshly denounced the criminal justice system in Texas, with Newberry adding, "The system is as corrupt as we are."
Damn.
Yeah. So these people, they're on a fucking mission.
Sounds like it.
And I have a feeling that they were out to kill. I mean, the only reason to steal 40 guns is to go on a killing spree.
Exactly. You are not going to get caught. You are not going back.
And the majority of these guys were sentenced to death after being extradited to Texas.
Mm.
Or some of them are extradited to Texas. Others were sent other places. But like George Rivas was executed on February 29th, 2012. Donald Newberry was executed by lethal injection February 4th, 2015. And, you know, so there were 7 of them. That covers 3 of them because the one killed himself before they got there. Let's see. Rodriguez announced that he wished to forego any further appeal. A court-ordered psychiatric evaluation concluded that he was mentally complete to decide to forego further appeals. 20 months later, he was the first of 6 surviving members to be executed. So 3 were executed. 1 committed suicide. The other 3 were incarcerated on death row at Biloxi Unit of Texas Department of Criminal Justice located in West Livingston. Of the surviving members, only Garcia has an execution date.
Oh,
so
wow.
Garcia, Halpern, and Murphy were the 3 that were sentenced to death row, and only Garcia has an execution date.
Huh.
So that's, you know, these people, you know, that was quite the event, you know.
Yeah, exactly. I want to jump ahead. The Texas 7. That's an amazing story.
Yeah.
I want to jump ahead to, I think, what is it? The 13th anniversary of September 11th. That September 11th, 2014. T.J. Lane, 19, serving 3 life sentences for indiscriminately killing fellow students at Ohio High School in 2012. And Jay Morris, 20, escaped Allen Correctional Institution. Rodriguez was apprehended about 5 hours later, and then and Morris captured about 8 hours later after that. That's weird because those aren't even the guys' names. Anyway. So the reason I want to talk about this one is because the T.J. Lane, if you don't, he's one of these little punks that, you know, child shooters, high school shooters. He kills 3 people, but the case, the prosecution, the whole trial for this kid is one of the most bizarre things you will ever encounter. So one of the days he's sitting there in the court, there's all the victims' families are there, and he leans over to him and says, "The hand that pulls the trigger that kills your son now masturbates to the memory," and then he flips him off.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So on the day that they were to read his verdict, he had a buttoned-up shirt on, and he undoes the button there to reveal that he's got a white T-shirt on underneath. He takes the other shirt out. He doesn't have handcuffs on in court, which is weird for a murder case like this.
Right.
He takes his shirt off, but underneath it on his undershirt, it's a white T-shirt that he had scrawled the word killer on across it in black Sharpie. So he's sitting there in court facing the victims' families with the word killer on his chest, and he's kind of away from the judge, and the judge can't see the fact that he's got the word killer written on his fucking shirt. This kid was fucking crazy.
Yeah.
But watch there's a YouTube video on it. It's just it's nuts. But he ends up escaping, and he gets caught back in, and he ended up pleading guilty, never gave any reason to why he did what he did, and showed zero emotion when the victims' families basically, you know, they get to yell at him. They call it like a pathetic excuse for a human being and blah, blah, blah. Hope you get an extremely slow, torturous death. The kid, no reaction whatsoever. Doesn't flinch, doesn't smile, doesn't look at him. It's like almost like he's watching a TV show, and it's a nagging wife that has been doing it for 40 years in the background. He's finally learned how to tune it completely out because he was not in that room.
And see, that shows, you know, that's like the true definition of sociopath.
Oh yeah.
So going away from that, I want to jump back to 2009. Lance Batriel, Charles Smith, and Mark Buher escaped from Michigan City, Indiana. Now, I've noticed a lot of these escapes are in the Indiana, Ohio area.
Yeah.
You might want to think about tightening down your prisons. Just saying.
Just a little bit.
And so on July 12, 2009, through underground tunnels under the prison yard, these three escaped. Smith was captured on July 20th, 2009, near Chicago Mayor Richard M. Daley's vacation home in Grand Beach, Michigan. I found that interesting. Batriel was captured on July 21st, 2009, at his mother's house in Rockport, Indiana. Don't go, as I said before, don't go to your fucking mom's house.
Right, exactly.
Buher was captured on July 23rd, 2009, in a hotel in Indianapolis, Indiana. None of these people strayed far from the fucking prison. Now, when you look at the date, they escaped July 12th. The earliest one captured was 8 days later, July 20th. Do you know how fucking far you can get in 8 days?
Yeah.
He only went to Grand Beach, Michigan, which isn't that far from Michigan, Michigan City, Indiana. Where the other one was 9 days, and he was still in fucking Indiana at his mom's house. And then the third one, 10 days or 11 days, is still in Indiana, in Indianapolis. Okay, you had plenty of fucking time to get out of there.
So, okay, let's just use this logic. Okay, there's a race to see if a man can make it around the world in 80 days. Okay? So just use that logic. In 10 days, that means you could get 1/8 of the way around the world.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're going north to south, that means you probably could have made it to the Mexican Guatemalan border.
Right. Yeah, that's just crazy to me. You know? I mean, get the fuck out of Dodge.
It's oh fuck, man.
All right, I'm gonna let you take the next one before I get into Pascal Paye.
Okay. So here's just because I wanted to just run through this one real quick, just because with the last election, there's this place in Libya that everybody keeps fucking talking about, Benghazi. But on July 27th, 2013, 1,000 inmates escaped from a prison near Benghazi, Libya. The escape occurred after a wave of political assassinations and attacks on political officers around the country. Local residents of Benghazi forced the inmates out of the prison. So this is another one of those where they actually had help, but this was also one of those things where a lot of those people disagreed with the political views of Libya at the time. So did they really deserve to be in prison?
Right.
Yeah, this was more of like a liberation as it was opposed to escape.
Yeah. Well, what I find interesting was the fact that it says local residents of Benghazi forced the inmates out of prison.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So if the locals want you to assimilate into their hey, come on down. We'll give you jobs, give you places. We don't even like people crossing our border coming up here and doing the jobs we don't want to do, let alone go into the prison, pull these motherfuckers out and say, mow my lawn.
Right. Well, and, as I talked about, and I don't remember if it was this episode or, the last episode, but underneath, on Wikipedia, where we're getting a lot of this information from, is a list of people with who escaped multiple times.
Yes.
And on here is the guy I'd mentioned earlier, Pascal Paye. Now, it says he escaped twice. This is wrong. He escaped 3 times.
Mm.
And I'm going to talk about his third escape because all 3 escapes were done with helicopter.
Oh, wow.
So this guy has escaped twice with a helicopter. So on July 14th, 2007, and this is in France. This is on Bastille Day. It's a major holiday in France.
Yes.
And they're at the Grasse prison. Grasse prison. Okay. So knowing that this guy has had 2 previous escapes by helicopter, they put him in solitary confinement. Do you know where the solitary confinement was?
No.
On the floor below the roof.
Oh, nice.
A guy's escaped twice by helicopter. You put him as close to the fucking roof as you possibly can. So on this day, the guards going around like normal, nothing big going on. They, Pascal Paillet is getting ready for bed. He's in his underwear and t-shirt. So several miles away, four of his cohorts go into this place that does helicopter tours. They hijack a pilot and a helicopter, and from the time they hijack, and this is the amazing part about this whole thing. From the time they hijack this helicopter to the time they get to the prison, 5 minutes.
Wow.
Yep, 5 minutes. So in 5 minutes, they are on the roof of this prison. And they know exactly where he is located in this prison.
Because they've been there enough, apparently.
Right. So they get there and they use those big saws that, the big gas saws that rolled up and cut through the doors. They make quick work of the doors. They're down to a cell, cut him out of his cell. He escapes in his underwear and t-shirt into this helicopter. They fly off. Now, the guards that see the helicopter there, they got their guns aimed, and the one guard is watching him binoculars, says, "Hey, wait, you can't shoot. There's a hostage." So during a hostage situation, their protocol is they cannot fire unless fired upon.
Oh.
So all these guys that are breaking in, one stays in with and they must know the protocol. It stays with the helicopter pilot, gun to his head. Well, plus probably didn't want the helicopter to escape without him.
Right.
But
hey, where'd our guy go? Oh shit, I guess we're staying.
So they hold the gun to this guy's head, so the guards can't do anything unless somebody shoots at them, and nobody's shooting at them.
Mm-hmm.
So they go and get him. So this whole thing, from the time they hijack the helicopter to the time they fly off, 10 minutes.
Damn.
Yeah, I mean, this is something they had to practice a ton of times and had it down like clockwork. Granted, okay, he's recaptured 2 months later.
Yeah.
But I mean, let's go over how stupid is it to house somebody who's escaped twice by a helicopter on the top floor?
And how ballsy is it to do 3rd time's a charm with the same way?
Right. Well, but I mean, the brilliance of it is doing it on Bastille Day.
Yeah.
Which is I believe the biggest holiday in France.
Yeah, it's the National Day of France.
Right. So, everybody's celebrating and stuff like that. That's why they chose the right day to do it. Yeah. Because a lot of people are distracted by that and stuff like that. And guards are probably like, I don't want to be working today, man. I want to be out celebrating,
Right.
So, I mean, it's just amazing to me that, he's done this so many times. I mean, he is a French criminal who gained notoriety for his daring prison escapes using helicopters. He was initially sentenced to a 30-year jail term for a murder committed during the robbery of a security van in 1997. So, they're saying he only escaped twice, but he actually, according to White Rabbit, that is, which is, again, that show we talked about, he actually escaped 3 times, and his 3rd time was in 2007.
Jeez. So, yeah, we're not talking like 50 years ago that this James Bond shit was going on. This is just,
right.
10 years ago.
11 years ago, yeah.
That is.
It's amazing.
So we have covered a vast array of different ways of escaping prison. We've talked about people just walking out the front door. We talked about people trying to walk out in suitcases. We've helicopters. We've got tunnels. We've got shootouts. We've got sawing through bars with files and hacksaws. There's some interesting ways that people have gotten out of prison.
Right. I want to know more about this Philip Andrew Marshall.
Oh, glad you asked, because where I was going with all that is Philip Andrew Marshall actually uses most of those.
Well, it
Because
says
I say he uses most of them. The man escaped prison 6 times. And when you escape prison that many times, and the only thing that the sheriff can say was very frustrating.
and according to this, the most recent one was February 19th of 2018.
Yeah. Yeah, this was not too long ago. He so they go on to say that the jail's capacity that he's in is between 100 and 105 inmates. But
Okay.
but but where they're at is nearly 200 in there. They're saying it's 50-1, the ratio between prison guards to inmates. So that so what he's doing is he's just taking advantage of the fact that they can't watch him.
Right.
And he's done the sheet thing, scaled down the wall by doing the sheets. He actually did it. He didn't die. But because of the overcrowding that they have, here's the full quote from the or Sergeant Marshall or Sheriff Marshall. He says it's very frustrating. It's frustrating sometimes that employees don't do what they're supposed to. So essentially, he's blaming his staff on the fact that this guy has been able to he's actually just walked out once.
Right.
But
Well, and yeah, it says here Marshall was able to sneak away last month when he was left unshackled during a shower, despite the fact that he's always supposed to be shackled outside his cell.
yeah. So he's basically an opportunist.
Oh yeah, and I mean, if you see a picture of this guy, this picture screams white supremacist.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's got the. Are you looking at the one where he's got the dingy wife beater on?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it looks like it's got a bunch of cigarette burns across the front of it.
Yep.
Shaved head. Looks like he's missing an earlobe.
Yep.
He's got a shitty tattoo on his shoulders.
Yep.
So yeah, it's an interesting cat here, man. He's
right. Well, yeah, and you go down here where it's talking about the jail administrator Tim Lockey says told the newspapers right now we're terribly shorthanded. We're just treading water. That can lead to mishaps. Okay, mishaps, human error, I get, but 6 fucking times.
right.
In October, Marshall and 2 other inmates got out by sneaking into the jail's attic, then using bed sheets as makeshift ropes to repel to freedom.
Yeah.
The month before, he had escaped from the county's workhouse where he was staying as the county did repairs on the jail. Oh, this is just ineptitude.
Yeah. That I love this one here. That I check all the windows and doors this morning, said Jessica Moore, who lives down the street. Marsha fled down to in January, told the television station, when I heard I heard a knock on the door, I wondered if I should answer it because it scares me that he's running loose again.
Oh, and then there's even more. There's this person who says, too bad the Winter Olympics does not have a hide and seek event. This guy would be a national hero.
Yeah, there you go. Gold medal.
Right. Or I think it's crazy that they haven't done more, especially with the ones who continue to break out. Could you imagine living in that area?
No. So I about the time I was in, I guess the first one was built when I was 7th or 8th grade, but the first of 3 prisons there was definitely in full operation by the time I was in high school. And
right.
we never really feared that the prison being there, because logic would say the last fucking place you would go is the town that the prison is operated in. But as we've already told the story about, the guy made it 300 yards from the front gate, and they followed his foot tracks in the morning dew right to where he was at. And all of the rest of these people do stupid shit like stay in the same town, don't go anywhere, stay in the woods around the prison. Like
right.
live off the goddamn land or some shit like that. But we should have been more fearful is where I was trying to say is,
Yeah.
he's with the prison being in my backyard, because they're not smart. The first
Right.
place they are going to go is somewhere in town.
Right. Well, because a lot of these were done in broad daylight.
Yeah.
So in broad daylight, obviously they're going to go someplace to lay low till nighttime.
Right.
Like you talked about the one there, they followed his tracks to the deuce. So obviously it was morning when he broke out.
Right. Yeah. He escaped from a work crew.
Right. And that's where a lot of escapes happen from and stuff like that, because there's less guards per inmates.
And when you start getting some of these are just fantastic, but the fantastic and a sensationalized fantastic, not fantastic as I think that's cool they're getting out, but escaping from death row, escaping by helicopter from a more secure location in a prison by helicopter. Those are the ones that fascinate me. And then like this, where this guy's like a puppy that keeps getting off his chain.
Right. So, this pretty much sums up the prison escapes. I mean, this is the second part has been, I think, a lot longer than the first part.
Yeah.
But so to sum it up, there's some crazy motherfuckers out there.
There really is. There really is. And, it goes to show that you don't have to be smart to commit a crime, and you don't have to be smart to escape from prison.
Right. So yeah. So that pretty much sums up this episode. There's some things I want to kind of put out there. If there is something that you would like to hear us talk about, follow our social media pages, our website, and just send us a message. If we find it that, hey, that sounds really cool, we'll fucking do research on it and talk about it.
Absolutely. That'd be we want to hear back from everybody that does listen. We will respond to emails and everything else that you send us. So just keep all that stuff rolling, and thanks.
Yep. And if you think we're full of shit, tell us we're full of shit. We really don't care.
Exactly. It's not going to stop us from being full of shit. So.
But if you like us, hey, let us know. It's always nice to hear that.
Exactly. So insert tagline here.
Yep. I am Craig. This is.
I'm Jason. So thank you once again for listening, and stay tuned next week. So do we have an idea what we're doing next week?
Oh, yes, we do.
All right.
We are going to do, I'm going to let them know, a little hint. We're going to do the Mandela effect. Yes. Don't research it. Hear it from us, or research it and then listen to it and, see if you agree with us.
Yes.
It's a fascinating thing, though.
It is an awesome topic. It is an awesome topic. So.
And I got to thank my wife for coming up with that idea.
Yes. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
She said, you're welcome. You can thank Facebook.
Right on. So,
all right. So that's it for tonight, folks. And we will see you next week.